I learned plenty of labor jobs into the entrepreneurship, and I'm here because I'm speaking up for our children that do not have a voice and that is silenced and censored, and also our teachers that cannot produce positive results of what I have done from homeschooling, from following a consistent and quality education. If to the right, if you would glance over there and look through that throughout this day, you'll see what my child has produced, or the school district produced for my children in 3 years, and it stems far farther behind that when there is a less than 50% proficiency rate in math, and there's children that are 6 years old that still cannot read. I think that needs to be addressed. None of the board members are addressing that, because they just follow the agendas and or push the policies through as if they're going to produce positive results. Also, they need to start standing up for our children's constitutional rights, for them to choose what they are best for their health. Mental health needs to stay out of our school districts, and if they have a choice to pursue that, to go to a doctor and see if they need more health care, then they should do so. If not, all they're doing is searching for more funding, more grants, and to push more seat warmers per se. But that is all I have to say right now.
Good evening, everyone. I just want to thank everyone that came out tonight, because this is huge. You're here because you care, and we're looking for everybody's voices. So thank you, and thank you to Heather for hosting this and putting it together. My name is Tennille Knoop. I'm not from here originally. I'm actually an Air Force grad. Born in Maine. I lived in Hawaii, Guam, Indiana, Missouri. We traveled all over before we relocated here. I'm the mother of 3 children. So as an Air Force grad, as they say, you spend time on base with so many different families. Just because you're in Hawaii doesn't mean you're with somebody that's from Brooklyn, someone that's from Wisconsin. You're constantly meeting people on base that are from all different backgrounds, and you become this community. You become very tight. You learn about each other. That is the same thing that I feel that goes on at Utica school districts. My children, I'm so proud to say where they go to school. When anybody asks me, I proudly say Utica. I don't let my children hang their head low. I don't let anybody talk bad about their school.
1 minute remaining.
I'm the PTO president of Albany Elementary. I've been the PTO president for 6 years. I've been involved in 9. I took that role when I saw dynamics in our school needed help. Through that time, I've worked to fundraise and bring in programs for our children. I brought in STEM, mobile STEM museums. I brought in local authors to speak to kids. We brought in the whole Harlem Globetrotters when they're in town. We brought in the zoo. We try to bring in so many fundamentals that will help our children grow and expand the learning opportunities that we have here, because at the end of the day, that's what it's about. It's giving them the education that they have in the school and showing them all the other possibilities that are out there, and that's what I stand for. And I'm very proud of our school district, and I want to shine it in a different light and show people who we are, what we stand for, the wonderful opportunities that we have here. And it's time to make Utica great again, and for families to realize this is a place that has a strong community, a strong background, and our children are leaving with a worldly education before they even graduate. Thank you.
Hello everyone, my name is Jack Utica. I was born and raised here in Utica, New York. And today I'm here for the kids. I'm here for the kids in all the schools, the elementary schools, the secondary schools. A little about myself. I was born here in New York. Graduated from Proctor High School. After that, I joined the Air Force for 4 years. I was an air traffic controller. A job that you have to be a quick thinker. You have to be on top of things at any given time, as you should expect. After that, I went to college. I got a degree in psychology, sociology. That's a degree that has helped me in life, in my military career, my career as a councilman, and as a career as a parole officer. After the Air Force, like I said, I got my degree. I ended up getting a commission in the United States Army. I ended up going on 3 combat tours. These combat tours are very important in the sense that I was a commander to troops in combat. What I learned from that is you have to be a consensus maker. You're dealing with people from different countries. As a parole officer, I dealt with different tribal chiefs, I dealt with I dealt with the president of Kurdistan, and through my negotiations, I know I saved a lot of lives in those countries because they were at war. I think I took that along with being on the council for 8 years, negotiating contracts, working with the people in the city. I developed a good repertoire, and I know I have the tools to sit down with our board, the superintendent, and I'm very happy. And once again, I'm here for the children, and I'm thanking again for everybody coming. That's it.
Hello, everybody. I'll wake you all up. Dave Testa, I served on the Common Council. I worked with youth bureau for several years. I have a heart for the kids. I really care about kids, and I think we need one more program, especially on weekends. Some programs I can see implemented with the help of the city, try to get some youth coordinators working with some of the former Boy Scout people, and try to get some kids in the schools and try to keep some kids safe from the streets and help them with their homework and different things. I was on the Common Council. I'm running for school board for 1 week for kids, and I really love kids. And youth school was my first school I went to. And throughout my working in the school district, I worked 31 years. I have a good work repertoire for the all staff, and I just think that I'd be an asset to make youth better and for the school district and work with administration and take the positives and work on the negatives with the public and the parents. And I think the parents should have their say too, and that's it.
Hello, folks. My name is James Paul. And I'd like to thank you, first of all, for spending your time here. Your most valuable asset is your time, and you decided to spend it with us, so thank you. I'm a parent of 3 children that graduated from the city school district here. All 3 of them are doing well, so I thank the district for that. But I'm also a parent that's involved in my child's education. I truly believe that the most important part of a young person's education is parental involvement. When you don't have someone involved in your education, you're going to be stuck in an education that you may not be exposed to a lot of the things out there that kind of help you with that. I'm also a military veteran, 27-year Army veteran. My last 12 years in the Army, I was an instructor. So I understand what it means to make sure people get an education. How many of you veterans? I currently work with the Junior Frontiers. I currently have I've done that over 20 years. Kids in education setting. And through that, I've learned that our kids need us to really get involved in what they do. We need to expose them to more things. We need to make sure that if they don't understand something, we can kind of help them with it.
Is it off? Okay, good. Yeah, just keep leaving it off. I got this.
Doing that. But there's also some outside exposures that they need help with. I think that as a board member, we need to open up the district to our community. We need to help the community understand that when you wrap your arms around those kids in the school district, they're going to come out into a community with the education that they get from the district. If they don't get that education, they're still going to come outside with the education they didn't get. So I think it's in our best interest to make sure that our children are properly educated and that they have the help that they need. So when they do come out into the community, regardless of what part of the community they're in, they have an education that truly does benefit this community. Thank you.
I wrote something, I'll talk for 10 minutes, even if you try to stop. My name's Howard Potter. I'm a graduate from Proctor. I did 2 years at OC for graphic design, my education there. Did the bridge program from Proctor at MBCC and earned an associate's degree at MB. While going to school in the Utica City School District, I was living in a group home at Dallas Good Shepherd. And my husband to Amanda Potter, who was also a graduate from Proctor, and father to Angelina and Nathan Potter. My daughter Angelina Potter graduated last year from Proctor in the top 10% of her class. My son Aiden Potter is a sophomore and is doing very well in school. He's also on the bowling team, and he's also on the football team. I am one of the owners of Antique Master Heritages, which was founded 19 years ago from our home in East Utica. 9 years ago, we purchased property from the city of Utica to grow our company. We now employ 23 staff and have over 5,000 customers in 15 states and 5 countries. During those 19 years, I've worked closely with OCs to work with interns, job shadows, and set up a committee for graphic design and help with the PTEC program. Back in 2017, I was asked by the school district to sit on the Teacher Center Committee to help with the financial side of the committee. During that time, I was able to reach out to Anthony Berdissi, and he helped us secure more funding for the program. I also founded the Children's Future Bowl-a-thon and ran that event for 10 years and raised just over $60,000 for the children at the House of Good Shepherd. And we used those funds to purchase art and music supplies, pizza parties, computers, and so much more. My goals for the district are to improve our safety in our schools,
Can't get it to shut up.
busing for all, public transparency, improving the graduation rate, budgetary improvements and controls, and faculty retention. Those are just some of the reasons that Anthony Lapola, a Utica School Board member, and the Utica
Stuck
Teachers
in a loop.
Association have endorsed me to run for the school board. I look forward to answering any of your questions this evening.
Okay, so now we're open to questions. Who would like to go first? You would like? Okay.
So I've been to every one of these, and I have to say,
Just
so
like that.
far, I am not impressed with anybody, but I realize these are my only choices. I just, an observation from the meeting from the other night.
Is this a question?
There is a question, and I will get to it, I promise. That was terrible, the display between a candidate and I believe a common council person. That was why Officer Sweet was there. Now, I know a lot has gone back and forth about how everybody feels about Mr. Karam, and this is where my question comes in. I have heard several things, I have disproved several statements that some of you have made, but one of the things I want to know, Mr. Testa and Mr. Lemedico, you cannot see one of your signs without the other. And because of something I personally overheard with my own ears, a comment that was made at a meeting. Were you both handpicked by Bruce Karam?
Well, I'll tell you what happened. I got about 2 months ago, I was talking to Bruce, and Bruce knows that I was a common council member. He also knows that I have a lot of experience in negotiating deals. He also knows that when I was in the military, I was a civil affairs officer, and I had to work with individuals throughout the United States and in foreign countries, working with people. As a parole officer, I had to deal with people, parolees coming off the street, and I had to learn how to integrate them back into society. So when he asked me if I was interested, he probably asked me because of my ability, not for somebody who they just passed off the street. You could ask anybody that knows me. There's people and there's people here that know me. That I'm my own person. On the council, I voted with the Democratic Party, I voted against the Democratic Party, I voted my conscience. So if you come in and if you ask me that am I doing Bruce Karam a favor? No. I have 2 grandchildren in the city of Utica. I have a lot of experience, and I was happy that he had asked me, and I appreciate that he had asked me, and it got me thinking. And I decided, yeah, you know what? I think the school district could use a little help. I think they could use my ability. And that's why I'm standing here in front of all you people today. Thank you very much for that question.
So we have your word that you are not doing Bruce Karam's bidding.
Am I doing Bruce Karam's
That's
bid?
what I'm saying. We have your word that he just asked you, and you're not there because you're going to get Bruce
No,
Karam.
I'm here. let me just finish it up. Thank you. I'm here for Jacksonville Medical, and I'm here for the citizens and the students of the city. Well, let me finish it. Thank you very much for your question.
No, I'm running because I want to run, first of all. I'm not handpicked by Bruce Karen. I will support the administration, I will support the staff. On the common council, when I came in, you can ask the mayor, I wasn't with the mayor. And through the years, I worked with everybody. I have a lot of Republican support, a lot of Democrat support. I really love the city, and I think we have to move forward with all this, you see two things together. Jack did ask me to run. That I'll say. I had to make that decision, but Dave Custer made that decision. I said, I don't like when parents don't have rights. I think parents should have rights. I stand on the Constitution of the United States. I heard all these different race theory and all these different things. That's the other reason why I'm running. That was my decision. My wife said, "What, are you crazy?" Did Bruce ask me to run? No, I decided.
Yes, please.
Do you?
Yes, please. Thank you.
Hello.
Oh, maybe not.
Hello, everyone. My name is Mr. Mahoney. I'm a business owner in Utica. I have 2 school-age children, and a 2-part question. My first part, particularly for the 2 guys handpicked by the superintendent.
We weren't handpicked.
He just said you were.
We were.
I'm sorry. No interruptions is what you said. I'm sorry.
We weren't handpicked.
Can I answer my question?
Well, yes, you answered the question, but we weren't handpicked.
Okay. Thank you for clarifying. Thank you. Show me character. For the two older gentlemen, everyone else here seems to have a dog in this fight. They have school-age kids. They have a reason to be here. You guys seem like old retired politicians. Everyone else mentioned their kids. You guys both said at the beginning and ending in your speeches, I support kids. Yes. My question is, do you feel you are representative of the student body of the Utica City School District? It's one of the most diverse in the country, and I don't see that on the board. I see a bunch of old white guys. No wonder I like a bunch of old white guys. And with all due respect, I'm becoming an old white guy. My question is, do you feel, each of the candidates, do you feel that you represent the student body and the parents who send their kids to the, or don't send their kids to Utica schools? Thank you.
No mic, we're good without mic? Okay. Yes, I do feel I represent our school district. I've actually, by growing up in House with Shepherd, you live with everyone. You have to learn to deal with everyone's pros and cons. No different than being in a relationship. You gotta take the good with the bad. I actually purchased my home in East Utica back when I was 21 years old. My wife and I made the decision to put our roots there. That house was her cousin's house before it was ours, so we've had family in Utica forever from her side of the family. The diversity that we have in our school district is very unique. It's not a handicap. It's actually the complete opposite. But we promote it as a handicap when it comes to funding and other things. So yes, I do believe I would be a great representation for anyone and everyone in our school district, especially the kids, because these kids, they need social workers, they need guidance counselors, they need to hear from the public and know that the public cares, because guess who cared about me growing up? It wasn't my mother, unfortunately. She, her and I talk now, but it wasn't that way all those years ago. It was the community, it was my guidance counselors, my teachers. So yes, I do think I would be a good fit for that.
As I stand here, I think I look different than everyone up here. With that said, you don't think I look different? No? Okay, that's fine. With that being said, I'm a product of an underserved community. I definitely understand the needs of our youth in underserved communities. That's why I volunteer now as a co-director for the Junior Frontiers, because those young people need someone to step in and help them. As a kid growing up in Rochester, New York, I at that time, in the mid-'80s, it was the most violent city in the state. The Boys and Girls Club saved my life. It's 2 blocks from my home, across from my high school. 2 o'clock, I got out of high school, I run home, grab something to eat. 2:30, I'm at the Boys and Girls Club. That's part of the community outreach, or the community agency that helped, that we need to see the school kind of reach out to and wrap their arms around and get involved with. So now I volunteer to help
1 minute.
those kids get through their education, keep them engaged in something productive, so that when they go into an arena like this, they stand up and stand out. Thank you.
First of all, they call me an old white man or whatever. I'm 64 years old, okay? And guess what? I lived Utica all my life. I hear from the parents. I talk to the parents. I'm one candidate that went out and reached maybe 400 doors I've been to, okay? And I listened to a lot of parents complain about different things. This budget contains a lot of answers with the tempers. $19 million extra money, the state lawsuit, which is well overdue. You go back 10 years ago, when Mr. Karen came in, they made all cuts because the school district was going bankrupt at the city when I came in the school district, when I came in the city. With the council and with the mayor, with Mr. Morehouse, we got a good credit rating now in Utica. The budgets, we've worked on budgets. We know how to negotiate. We know how to sit down with the superintendent. If there's a need with the parents, we can sit down with them and make changes in the budget. That can happen. I will be there for the parents. I will be there for the kids. I think that the label me, what you just did was wrong. Okay, I see no color. There's 42 different languages in the Utica School District. You just gave me the finger? Okay.
No, it did not, sir.
Everybody,
Well, I'm just letting you know that I'll do my best for you. The parents first, the kids second, and then administration and the staff. That's it.
When I was 4 years old, my mother died. My father worked 2 jobs. I was home alone all the time. All right? Thank God I had neighbors and family that sort of took care of us. But no, it wasn't an easy ride for me. I know what it is to be a single parent. I know what my parents in the current school now are, what they're going through. I failed the 4th grade because I didn't know what the hell homework was. I just didn't. But finally, in the following year, and I mentioned this in the last time I was talking, I had a great teacher. Someone that made me feel like I was worthy of someone. Her name was Miss Darling. The most wonderful woman I've ever had as a teacher. And she taught me to be proud of myself and to have respect for myself and to try hard and that I could be successful in life. Okay? So I'm not your whatever you think I am. Part of my career in the military was working with different nationalities. I spent almost 2 years in Iraq, working with Christians, working with Muslims, and they took me in as part of their family because I respected them and I respected their religion and the way they work. All right, I did that for most of my life. All right? I understand people and I understand where they're coming from. I spent 30 years as a parole officer, a respected parole officer, that my parolees respected. You talk to somebody who's on parole with me, and they'll tell you, I never looked down to them, and I did everything I ever could to make them successful. I hate to say it every once in a while, I would take one in, and the majority of the time they would say to me, Mr. Lomedic, I'm sorry. I'm sorry for what I did. And I used to tell them, don't worry about it. We're gonna re-baseline you. We're gonna get you back on the street, but don't give up on yourself.
Time's up.
I haven't given up on myself, and I'm not going to give up on the students in the city of Utica. Thank you very much.
Well, like I said, I'm the president of Albany Elementary PTO, but before that, I worked with Mohawk Valley Community Action Agency where we set up a wellness program at Donovan Middle School. 20 years ago, so now I see children that are grown and I see them in the stores, so we worked with them to try to provide an outlet. At that time, Boys and Girls Club was still open. So we would visit them at Boys and Girls Club. We set up all types of programs for them. We set up after-school education programs to help them with their homework, with their learning. I've also worked as an ESL teacher at Concord. Working with the PTO has taught me a lot when it came to our students. It showed me how to connect because we're not all the same. And we're all from different backgrounds in one building together. And we have to learn from one another, which is something that's beautiful, but the first thing, in order to learn from each other, we have to be able to listen. I don't know all the answers, and I don't know what affects you differently than you, than me, but the only way I can learn is just by listening. And that's what I have done. And I formed a relationship with our parents and our faculty so that we came together. We formed all kinds of programs in our school. We formed a school store that taught students, they ran it themselves, and they would come in every morning, they set it up, they had to keep inventory. We taught them how to do finances so they could manage everything. We had a general manager, a manager. It's important to bring all these dynamics in. We have a gardening club. We have so many programs that we've brought into our school because we need to reach children at all different levels and all different interests because nobody's alike. And it's really important. And unless we listen and take time to see what our teacher needs, what our faculty needs, what our student needs, and put them together, we'll never get anywhere making sure that everybody feels inclusive and feels that their needs are met. And when it comes down to it, it's our children. And if our children don't feel safe and appreciated in school, that will feed right back into their academics.
Set the record straight, I am not just this white guy because you stereotype me from my skin color. I'm also Norwegian, Scandinavian, North African, Middle Eastern, and Native American. So I am very diverse in my lineage from my history. I also grew up here in the 80s and 90s of what vision our forefathers had planned for America. And we are a melting pot here in Utica. And I have friends from all over the world that are lifetime friends. They're almost brothers and sisters to me. And I feel that from living here, I know the culture, I know the heritage, I know where we came from. And the Judeo-Christian faith that has brought this country to be the greatest country in the world. And I feel that I can connect with these children. Considering the grades that these children are receiving is why there is blood in these streets, and these children need the solid, sound education that is their fundamental human right to earn, and they are not getting what they deserve, and that's what I'm here to fight for them.
Thank you for coming this evening to answer our questions. One of the things that comes to my mind is that I'm finding out about you, but not about any of the issues and how you would be representing some of those issues. I've probably attended 24 board meetings in the past few years, at least before the pandemic, and I know that some of the issues have to do with the hiring practices of getting a more diverse faculty. It has to do with culturally relevant curriculum. It has to do with having teachers and people on staff that the students can relate to in many personal ways. It has to do with the actual code of conduct, which if you read through it, it sounds more punitive than nurturing. There are a lot of issues that come up at the board meetings. I don't know, some of you have been to multiple board meetings, some of you I've never seen at a single board meeting. If you have been to the board meetings, I'd like to know which of those issues are meaningful to you that you can do something about. If you haven't been to at least a dozen of the board meetings, then why is some interest in being on the board? And what do you expect to do as a member of the board to help address those issues and to help bring some transparency from the board?
Sorry, James.
It's a great question. Over the past 6 years maybe, I can't count the number of board meetings I've attended, school board meetings I've attended. I've been part of asking so many questions to the school board, not the school board, but to the school board, because there are a lot of questions that need to be answered. Unfortunately, a lot of times the board doesn't get back to you with the answers, but that doesn't mean you stop going. This isn't me doing this because I have something to prove to anyone. I deal with these children every day. I get text messages and calls every day about a concern that they have in the district. So this isn't me saying that I can relate. This is me saying I understand because I'm fighting that same fight. I don't go to Assemblywoman Buttonshaw's office and Senator Griffel's office fighting for more formula or aid for the students
1 minute.
because it's something that I think they should do. It's something I believe in because I see that right now Utica is the least funded per student right now than any of the other districts in the central New York area. The least amount per capita, per student rather, 19,000, a little bit over 19,000. So with that, how do we have to work at reaching out to other folks, building bridges, and trying to fight for what's right, not because you hear something to do, not because you've been asked to do it, but because you believe in it, you work it, and you know that you can make a difference.
I've been in many school board meetings, and I'll give you one example. One time, school board was making cuts, and on the chopping block was the teacher assistant, teacher aides, and I basically skipped everybody and went right to the front of the line, and I knew a lot of the school board members. And I says, these are the people that get the kids off the bus. These are the kids that they're always there for the principals when they need them, and they're going to make sure the kids get in safely, and they're going to be there for the teachers to help them. You know, how can you cut teacher assistants and teacher aides? And that night, they decided not to cut the teacher assistants and teacher aides. This actually happened. You can ask Karen Blandis and the unions and different people there. That part of it, I answered that part. The second part is diversity is very important. We need more. We have a lot of different languages, a lot of different people. We need reach out to different minorities and then try to bring in staffing. Custodial, I see they're doing that. I see it, they're doing it with security a little bit more. I like to see an equal, a broad hiring practice. And that's what I would do.
Well, let's face it, we're here for the kids, right? So what do we need from our kids? Proficiency, higher graduation rates, small classroom size, reduce classroom size, IEP, the system that works, that strikes these kids from when they see they actually have a problem, that they work on those problems and they get the equipment and the need that, and the help that they need. So when they do graduate, and when we are graduating from Proctor, that they have the tools to go on to school. These are the things I'm looking at. These are the things I'm going to concentrate on when I'm on the board. Are we giving our students, are we giving our teachers, are we giving them the tools that they need to take care of these issues? Right now, another big issue, just I just mentioned the other day coming down, is that there's 8.5 refugees that are right now. Our schools right now are busting at the seams. We have a refugee center, it's probably going to get hundreds of these people coming in. Where are we going to put these students when they come in?
1 minute.
We need to look at where we are now and where we are 5 years. There has to be some dynamic planning coming up, what we have to do. Are we going to look at more schools? Are we going to find existing buildings? How are we going to take care of these people? Ladies and gentlemen, I'm not about anything except the children and making their lives better and making them aware of what's out on the outside when they graduate and make them prepared for it. So that's what I'm looking at when I step on this board after May 17th. Thank you.
So my platforms for the school focus a lot on mental health and safety. Right now, there's a lot of issues going on in our schools that are concerns for safety. As a mother, I'm concerned. I have 3 children. We have not had a bus that was picking up my children, so for the past year and a half, I've been working with other parents with a large carpool, and we bring kids to and from school. Not all parents are lucky enough to have that, so I'm very grateful for the community that I do have. During those pickups when you watch these children come out, you will be privileged to see so much that goes on in our school that you don't hear about. You don't hear about the fights that are going on in our school right now. Our security guards, they hired 47 this year. We've already lost 28. 10 were removed by the district for reasons. So those positions still have not been filled. Those security guards' hours were cut, so they're not given proper payment. That means they leave, they go find employment somewhere else. But guess what? That safety goes hand in hand. If you speak to my children at the end of the day, when they get in the car, we're having dinner, they're going to tell you the security guards by name. They're going to talk about Tony and what a bond they have. That matters. Having that stability matters with these children. And showing our staff as well, when it comes to security, because it's not an easy job, that they matter by paying them properly, giving them enough hours, and giving them the support they need so that they can support our children. And when it comes to mental health, we can't talk about safety without mental health. Mental health has to be there. From the National Association of Social Workers, we're supposed to have one social worker for every 250 students. Look at our school buildings. We have more than that, which means there should potentially be 2 school workers in each. And our school workers are so busy right now in CSE meetings, they don't even have time to meet with the students, and that's for the schools right now that even have a social worker. These things are really important. Our schools are busting at the seams. We do have a lot of issues, and mental health does have to have a place in the home, because for these children, there has to be a place for them to go and someone they can connect with. Otherwise, again, it's just another trickle-down effect. Something that starts at home, leads into the classroom, brings into lunch, and we're having an outburst. We need our security there. We need safety, but we need mental health too.
So the first part of your question or whatever, it's virtually, so it is recorded. You can watch it anytime. You could also watch it at your home. I'd rather not stand there and go to public comment and be ignored like all of my dozens of emails and or phone calls, because not one of the board members ever had called me or contacted me to address these problems. To solve the problems, we need a quality and consistent education that doesn't keep changing every so many years for the teachers, so they can keep steady on what is helping the children retain that knowledge. And also, we also need to stop the retributions from these teachers so they can speak up to talk against these failed policies and or curriculum that isn't producing the positive results. And that is definitely something that would improve all. And also, as that gentleman said over here in one of our first meetings, how they pushed out all the influential people that were actually from our community, and they pushed in family and friends that they wished to get those positions. I think we need to give them incentives, maybe a bonus that if you live here in Utica, that you will get a little more bonus of pay to grow our own crop here and from our community.
So your first part of your question was how many meetings, how often, when. So I go back to probably 2016, 2017, when I was addressing issues when my children were going to Albany and another one of my children were going to JFK. I worked on drop-off and pickup safety. Why was that? I was driving a big truck, almost hit a kid. Not once, but twice, pulling into the roundabout. There was no crossing guards. There was no security out there keeping an eye on this stuff. So I spent 2.5, 3 years working on that with City Hall, trying to work with the district, working with our UPD. They were all forthcoming to help. Multiple council members, including Joe Marino, stepped in and helped. And we got all the signage changed, we did traffic studies. Then once I did all that with those 2 schools, then I brought it to the school board meeting, which we still have some of those existing board members to this day. They did nothing with it. So fast forward, I was probably at a couple more board meetings in between that. Well, when things got shut down, and they were worrying about getting things open back up, I had to worry about that because my daughter has a very rare disease. So I started asking questions, started emailing. I wasn't getting very good answers. So I was getting responses. May not have been the answers I wanted, but I was getting responses. But during that time period, public speaking was shut down. Meetings were closed down. They were virtual. When they opened back up, I was at every one of them, even the first 2 where we were all locked out. We were only allowed to walk in. So as far as I'm concerned, you have to show up and be there and put skin in the game. You can sit home and watch it virtually, that's great, but that's not showing your face and making eye contact with them and holding them accountable. That's what needs to be done.
Mike.
paid attention to what's going on. Is it on? Yeah. Okay. In my former life, where I worked, many times there were issues brought to our attention as a team of people working, and when we looked at all options, and one of the options that we looked at in trying to solve problems was to investigate best practices that were being done in other locations and other kinds of businesses. And so my question to all of you is, do you have a particular program in mind that you have investigated as a best practice from another school district? Doesn't have to be from around here. But for example, how are we helping, how are we addressing the mental health issues of our kids after the pandemic? And have you looked at any kind of best practices from other school districts? Thank you.
Being that when I was on the common council, one of the first 2 years, that's when they made cuts with the psychiatric center. The adults and the children were on the block to be cut. Me and a few other council members, we made 5 trips, and they actually cut the children one and adult one. We went 5 times to the governor's office. We had signatures, we went in, and they restored the mental health for the youth in the Mohawk Valley area. I think that's very important for our students, that they have the mental health, the needs. In this budget, there's some positions being put into this. A medical director is going to help. And then we have, as far as the second part of the question was, I'm sorry, that got me off.
If you looked at best practices from other school districts to address a specific problem.
Well, Syracuse has similar problems that I've seen online. They have a lot of problems like with gun violence and mental health issues. I read things on that, and they have some solutions, but I think Utica is a smaller community working with our mental health in the area. I think we got to get them more aboard to work with us.
No, I haven't really looked at best practices in other schools. I think it's a good question. Well, being a parole officer for 30 years, I certainly work with all the agencies in the area here, and I want to get them involved with my parolees. I think one of the great things on their budget this year, I just want to get them started, is that I think that the school board and the administration has understand that there is some issues going with that. You know, they've hired 14 social workers in addition to the ones they already have, and they've also hired 2 psychologists. So I think they're on the right steps of taking care of some of the issues. But you know, I was in these houses where these poor kids, you know, 5, 6, 7 kids in a house, you know, with a single mother trying to make ends meet, weren't able to get a handle on it. Some of these kids have serious mental health problems. So I've seen it firsthand, and I've had to work with these children and get them the help that they've needed through my job. So yeah, I understand what the issues are. Have I actually gone to a school once again? No, or looked at best practices, but I think it's a tremendous idea, and I'll take you up on it, so thank you.
Good question. They're going to keep getting tougher. When it comes to a district in particular, I've done a lot of reading. I have my bachelor's from Syracuse University. I'm currently finishing my master's from Johns Hopkins University. So education is really important to me. And researching and finding the background and the pieces that we need first is something that's really important because you can't just jump in. We have a lot of wonderful programs right now that are available to us through New York State. And a lot of them that involve working through the community. Rome, if you will, is an example of kind of their community school. It became a community school a few years back. And what that means as a community school is they started working with other agencies in their area to come directly into the school to provide a hub for those services, which is something that we have great access to. I reached out to the Department of Health and have been speaking with them, and Vicente has some great initiatives coming out to work with youth. However, right, again, going back to the same issue, we don't have a Boys and Girls Club, we don't have these things. So one of their obstacles is, how do we get to these children that need us, right? School is not a place, they're there for academics. We need them, reading, writing, that's what's important moving forward. But for the other components, we offer buildings and space that these programs are looking for. So they're interested in coming in and sitting down and developing something and being that bridge so that all these children that do need something, it's right there for them. And then that makes it easy for school because it takes some of the weight off of our teachers, our social workers, everything else that are already combusting and so stressed. It gives them an outlet when they have an issue. Okay, here are these options. Well, we need our options. We've got other things in the grant. We've got a $2 million positive climate right now that's for schools right now that's having serious trouble with suspensions and game runs. That's us. We qualify for this grant to come in and they work directly with the school. Not during school time, because school time is for, our academics. That's what our children need to strive when they go in the workforce. But they also need the other fundamentals behind it.
Right now, I'm in close contact with a few other candidates from other districts here, so if we do get in, then we can cross our notes to see what works here or there and kind of help each other. I think it comes back to our education. Some of these children don't feel as smart or, educated as their peers, so that's why they are fighting instead of working. Which, me bringing my children grades up, I've seen their confidence build up. I see their critical thinking, their motor skills, and all that has developed and matured over education to where if we bring back the real science and the true history of things, that they could feel confident in making a decision on their own so they don't have to listen to others to tell them what to do.
So I want to ping pong back off of her old question about being at board meetings, because if you watch the last two board meetings, this ties into yours as well. Did we bring up busing at all? Seems to be a pretty serious issue, right? Don't see any movement on that. During this time, since last year when busing issues started, I've talked to parents, I've talked to bus drivers that work for both companies, and I also spoke to other people that work in other bus companies out of the area, that work from this area that I went to high school with. So one of the problems we have is most of the school districts around us own their own busing. We got away from that years ago, right? So we got away from that platform. So we outsource it. So what happens when we hire a new bus company? We want based on price only. When you buy a car seat for your child, do you go buy the cheapest car seat or you buy the one that's going to be the safest to protect your child? We don't do that with our busing. We do the complete opposite. So in turn, we have part-time seasonal workers. What's that mean? Anybody that owns a business knows you're not going to keep someone part-time seasonal, correct? They're going to ditch you and go to the next best thing to get full-time with benefits.
1 minute.
We can do shared work program services with our school district when we're short on security officers, maintenance workers, people for lunch aides, substitutes, and give them 25 to 30 hours with the busing company, which they already paid for the fingerprint services and every background check, and then we can fill them up with full-time hours through our school district. The kids see them on the bus and then at school. So that's just one part of that platform. Also, the software that the school district, or not school district, bus company has, they don't implement because it'll track who's getting on and off the bus. Then you'll know what you're paying for. But we don't know that. We're still foiling for the invoices of knowing if we're paying for all of the children to be delivered to the school district, or because the parents are also bringing them more than normal. So are we paying the full shot or not, or is that messing with our funding? So I have been looking into all that. Thank you.
To answer your question about have I looked into best practices, right now the lack of diversity in teachers here in the district needs to be addressed. I've heard people say that I've said only black people can teach black children. Not true. I've heard people say that I've said only white women can't teach black kids. Not true. I'm going to set the record straight on that right now. I hired, as part of the Junior Frontiers, 8 instructors to teach my SAT prep class. 7 of them were white women. education doesn't have a color. But I can tell you that as a person of color, whenever you're going to teach, whenever you're going to instruct, whenever people are going to learn, they need to relate. I can tell you that a Grow Your Own Teacher program will address that. Meaning, if we can put the funding and the programming together to grow our teachers in-house, our students that go through this district, the most diverse district in the state, then we'll get a better turnout when it comes to looking at the diversity of our teachers. Diversity doesn't mean hiring a person of color to clean the building. It doesn't mean hiring a person of color as a lunch aide. Teachers, that's a prestigious position. Let's put people of color there because we have the most diverse district in the state. If we grow our own teachers that reflect that diversity, we address it in one fell swoop. That line item was removed from the budget. Shock, yes. Mr. Hovaika asked a question about it 2 board meetings ago. I don't know if you got a response about it, but that was removed from the budget itself, and they were told that they think there were no students in it. Not true. There's students that want to be teachers. Let's get them in the program. Let's work with our universities and colleges in the area to get them an education degree and come back and teach in our district.
Just in terms of the board composition, I just want to know, in 20 years, there's been 3 people of color. I know there was a woman 20 years ago. I know David Mathis was on the board. And then I know Yvonne Irvin. If we have such a diverse population, can someone explain to me why we have no people that speak other languages or people of color? And if diversity is an issue, how do you plan to address that, whether you're on the board?
What's the question? What is the question?
How do we plan?
Okay. The question is, we have such a diverse population, and I want to know, how do we get more diversity on the board? And then, if I may, I am equally perplexed. We have so much diversity, so much languages. Our probably 780 staff, we probably have 19 people that may be people of color. Not that many teachers, not that many people in the lunchroom. And I'm perplexed. Do I have to join the Friends and Family program to become a teacher?
I don't know how you get more diversity on the board. That I don't know how to answer. But when it comes to diversity in their school, it is important because children do need to be able to have someone that they feel that they relate to. So that is something, and you're right. I mean, in our schools we have a lot of Bosnian women in the kitchen, but we have a lot of white cafeteria workers, which is an interesting fact and something that I'm going to be honest, I've never really thought about until you have brought that up. That's something that we need to look into that because children need to be able to identify with someone, they need to be able to relate. And if we're able to take that and look into people that are coming in for our jobs and bringing these people into our school, for me, I think that's very important because I want to be able to relate to another female, another someone that comes from my background. It's important. You have a connection when you meet somebody. So I think that would be a great gift to bring that to our students, to have more diversity and somebody that actually they can connect with and feel comfortable as well.
I believe it comes down to trust. Nobody trusts who goes into office, because every time they stand up here on a panel, they say one thing and they do a totally different thing when they're behind the voting negotiation table. So I think to get somebody in there with integrity that will actually do what they say and say what they do, I think will help build that trust back and inspire them to stand up and see how government can work for the people if there's actually people in there that work for we the people.
So I've actually emailed all of our local politicians. One of the things that I noticed right out the gate, if you watch our city, right, and you look at a common council, you look at the school board, yes, one's paid, one's not, correct? But when you run for common council, who's voting you in? Your community and where you live. Your makeup of your community is who's voting you in. That's one of the things I would like to see improved with the school board, statewide, not just our area, statewide. Because now you're making it fair to where say, hey, this group of people, like we gotta go from association to association, that creates opportunity, it creates drive and ambition. Look at our common council, do we not do that now? We have people that get voted in that can speak, that represent our community. That doesn't happen there. Not only that, if you actually look on our school district website and you pay attention to the literature that's up there, where does it really tell you how to run for the school board? Think about it, I'm a business owner, 19 years. I've done a lot of research, a lot of work, and I'm thumbing through that website, I'm going through New York State. They make you bounce around, and if you don't know the right question to ask, you don't get the information. So how are you supposed to have a fair shot at it? You're supposed to hunt for it, you're supposed to guess. What you have to do is you have to include people, you have to educate them. No different than our school system with the teachers trying to educate students. You've got to give them the resources. If you take the resources away, you're just hunting.
You had two questions. The first was how to increase the diversity on the board. Vote me in. Now, secondly, how do we address the diversity in the district, right?
Yes, sir.
Like I said earlier, let's create a grow your own teachers program. That helps with looking at students within this most diverse district in the state and groom them and give them incentives to become teachers in the district where they're going to go to college, graduate, knowing that when they come home, they can become great citizens in this city as teachers, increase the tax base. Teachers that look like the students increase the performance of those students. So that in turn increases our numbers, our standardized test scores, all of that comes with it. But also, as a co-director of the Junior Frontiers, I've gone on historically black college and university tours where we've taken kids to campuses across this country. And while on those tours, I will ask teachers or deans of certain schools that have education programs, will your graduating teachers come out and teach in Utica, New York? And they say yes. So we have to actually be proactive in hiring people that we want to be in this district. We have to get rid of the gatekeepers. We have to make sure that we involve our Utica Teachers Association to help with the hiring practice so that they can truly trust in what's coming into the district as something that's quality, and then mentor those teachers when they get in the district. So we have to make sure that the Utica Teachers Association is involved because we have some great teachers with some great ideas that will spread the word about the good things that are happening here in Utica. Thank you.
Good question. Manny Brown, Yvonne Irvin, and David Mathis, and I know all three of them. Yvonne Irvin was a good friend. I went to school with her. I supported her, and we do need all representation from the whole community of Utica and diversity. As far as working with everybody to bring more diverse people in, I think they do reach out to a lot of people. But more could be done. More could be done to try to draw in people, and they have to feel safe to come into the community. I like to see our homegrown people become teachers. And there's got to have programs from our state officials to try to bring some money in to help people, minorities and Latvian, Russian, whatever, to help them become teachers. Look for more funding for that, and I think that would be a great idea. Thank you.
Well, when you're the last one to answer a question, I could just say, well, what they said was a good idea, but, this is a great time to take care of the issue. I'm just looking at my notes here about, what we're gonna hire this year, right? 19 secondary teachers, 13 secondary for the CTE, 22 elementary teachers, 4 high school special education teachers, an orchestra teacher, 6 guidance counselors, 14 social workers, I mean, we got a plethora of jobs that are coming up here. And I think it's very, very important that we look all around and we do find people of color to fill these positions. But they have to be qualified, and then same as anyone else. I think it's a great idea to go to the.
Why would you not think they would be qualified?
Exactly.
That is an assumption coming from a penal mentality. You're seeing them as victims.
Well, I wouldn't say that. I
You
wouldn't
said
say
they have to
that.
be qualified. Anybody.
I wouldn't say
that's
anybody has to be
qualified.
qualified.
Okay, I am.
You know
I
what?
am.
Excuse me for saying that. It had nothing to do with being colored. I'm just saying we got to hire qualified people. I'm sorry if I had that with it, and it has mean nothing. I spent 30 some odd years in the Army with qualified black people and qualified white people. Okay,
And I had
That's
white
nothing to
friends.
do
Big question,
with
we
it.
is certified.
We're not talking about
Certified by New York
Excuse
City.
me.
Okay, guys, we're not gonna have any
But
more
anyway,
interruptions, okay? No more interruptions.
what I'm getting at is that we have, the point of this, we have an opportunity, okay? Forget about what you hear on the side here. We have an opportunity to fill these seats with qualified people, people who've gone through good colleges, good black colleges, good white colleges. But we do need to fill them, and I agree. I think diversity is very, very important in our school system. So here it is right now. It's up to the school board and it's up to the administration to get these filled by exactly what we're talking about. So let's do it.
Okay, so we're gonna read one of the questions from the box first, and then I'm gonna make my way around here and back there. So everybody, some people didn't want to stay private, so we're gonna give them that respect. Let me go through the first one.
Have you read the UTA survey and what are your reactions? Sorry.
Michael,
Me?
yeah.
Well, this actually came up in our meeting, and I asked them about the survey if the questionnaire was actually factual, and they told me that it was all about morale. I said, so it wasn't people moved out the district because for more money, or it wasn't childcare, or it wasn't any other? They said, no, it was all about morale, and it was lies.
Okay, Howard.
So yes, I did actually get to read a large section of the 4 pages, which was a lot. The majority of it was all comments, not so much the survey, and because the first few pages of the survey, it was more in depth than just morale. Morale was #1 topic, but then you had communication, you had bullying, you had retaliation, you had lack of resources, you had lack of transparency, which is a lot of what you hear parents say when they public speak. So when you sit there and you read something like that, and then you vote on someone's contract, and you give them kudos, when you just got the survey a few days before, I don't know how you cannot table something like that. And I know a few of our board members did try to do such, but it still got passed through, or I shouldn't say table it, but then try to vote it down. But I don't know how you look at an administration and say that the teachers are lying, or they're disgruntled, or they're just trying to get back at you. You can't sit there and tell us these are the same people we're supposed to trust with our children every day are lying to us through a survey. So when you sit back and you read those types of things, you have to start asking questions, ask concerns. When do you not call the UTA and say, hey, let's sit down and go over this before we move forward? What do we need to do to bridge that gap? And as an employer of 19 years, there's always an open door. That's why I don't have these issues at my company, because I listen to my staff. Without my staff, this company doesn't grow. So, yes, UTA survey, I would definitely, if you get your hands on a copy of it, I would definitely read it or open your eyes.
What is it?
The UTA survey.
Utica
Teachers Association, sorry.
I've actually read part of that survey as well. I must say that your perception is your reality. So if you feel that something's going on and you don't like when you say it, that's your reality. Same thing with you. I can't stand up here and say that what you're telling me is a lie. I have to trust that what you're saying now is your experience in the district. So with that being said, I surely think that the superintendent should have at some point said, you know what, I'm hearing a lot of things here. How do we address what I'm hearing? Let's reach out to the UTA. Let's reach out to the teachers. Let's reach out to the staff and see if we can work together to kind of clear up some of these things, because they're concerned with a lot of things, and sitting back and not addressing them doesn't help. I think that we have to really open up the school board.
1 minute.
The lack of transparency is part of the reason these perceptions are what they are. So if something happens, and I don't know what's going on behind the scenes, and I feel a certain way about it, it's because of the lack of transparency. Maybe I don't have all of the information. Maybe I don't truly understand what caused certain things to happen. But if you don't want to have those conversations, and you want that environment to remain the way that it is, you sit back and don't ask the questions. You sit back and show that you don't care about those perceptions, which are those people's reality, not their lives, but their realities. Thank you.
I got to look at a little bit of it, I have to be honest with you. Just like him, I looked at some of it, and I talked to a lot of teachers, and they live in Utica. There's like about 150 teachers that live in Utica. I reached out to some of the ones that I know, and I hear some of the concerns. I think that as far as a contract year, and we're all run for the school board. As far as us, I support the teachers getting a contract. It has to be a fair contract. They're the only ones without a contract, and they deserve a contract. I think that we have to give them the tools they need to do their classrooms. You've got to do exploratory committee. I like to see bigger class sizes, smaller classrooms, as far as the kids being in classrooms. Whether we have to, down the road, take a 5-year plan like Jack mentioned. Do we have to go to 2 high schools? We got the trades going in, which is going to be great for the kids going into school. Beauty salon, we had that. They need that with as far as we had clubs. We were able to go to all the different events together. And they need 2 years of COVID. It's been hard on teachers. It's been on custodial. It's been hard on everybody. And we could blame, but at the same time, we got to resolve issues. I'm willing to sit down with teachers, and I'm willing to try to work with administration and try to resolve some of these issues. That's all.
I read it. About 2 months ago, I sat down and I read it. You know, if it looks like something, if it smells like something, it probably is something, right? After reading it, there's issues there, okay? So I'm just not going to talk about it. The first thing I do when I get elected, I'm going to have 2 symposiums. First symposiums are going to be with the teachers. I'm going to sit down with the teachers and find out what the real issues are. I'm not going to talk about them. I'm going to sit down and I'm going to figure out what they are, because when now I have something that I can negotiate with. And then I'm going to sit down with the administrators and I'm going to find out what their issues are. And that's how you get things done, folks. You just don't talk about one side and the other side. You got to go in as a neutral force, talk with everybody, and see what we can do to fix it. I've been doing this my whole life, sitting down with people and working out their issues. You can't just talk about it and say, oh, this side doesn't know what they're talking about, or that side. You got to take it straight on and work it, and that's what I do. You know, I'm a man of action, and I'm going to take care of it. Thank you.
So the UTA survey, for those who don't know, was the Utica Teachers Association. First, what you should know is that they surveyed 500 teachers, but that was a stretch. They had to work incredibly hard to build the trust for these teachers to even take the survey, because they were reluctant, because they are afraid to come and speak out. They're afraid that they're not heard, and when they are heard, they will be reprimanded for speaking out. So first, we need to know that took a lot of courage for those teachers to actually come out, take this survey, with the fear that maybe somebody might find out that it was them that took it. If you haven't read the survey, I suggest that you do. You have 500 teachers on there, and their morale is low. And as a mother with 3 children in the district, that makes me upset. Because these are the people who are coming into school every day to educate our children. This is our future that's walking out the door. And if they don't feel appreciated and their morale is low, how do they give back? And they don't feel supported? What's the one thing that you need from an employer? You need support. If you don't feel supported, all of you, with whatever job you do, if you don't feel supported, if you don't feel appreciated, it dwindles down, you don't do your best work, you're not there, you're not able to offer everything. Now, when I say that I'm sad about this survey and to see how our teachers feel, and when I'm upset I have teachers right now, we can't be in pictures together, we can't talk to each other, because they are afraid right now that anything that I say will be associated. I have people in the schools that were talking to me that have now stepped back because they were accused of feeding the information. And it wasn't even that, they had the wrong people that were telling me what was going on, and that's real. But was I shocked to read these things? No, because I've been in that school. So I've watched, I've struggled when we tried to get things passed, when teachers struggled to get certain things and nobody's listening. It is real. As PTA, we raised money to bring tables into our school and there were not tables. So when you go by our school and see tables that kids are sitting in, we raised money for those because there were none.
So I just to clarify what I was talking about was the exit survey that Cardillo had spoken about in a meeting, is why the teachers are leaving. I'm all for opening up that open line of communication with the teachers to address their concerns.
All right, he has Mike, that I'm gonna work my way around here. We can only do a few more questions, so we'll do you, and then we'll go from there and see where we are with that, okay? Go ahead.
Hi, I am actually a security guard for the school district, and I go to different, I've gone to high schools, elementary, and I have seen firsthand with how the kids, when they need help, from discipline issues on the busing service, and I'm just wondering what you guys would do with disciplinary issues and action on the bus, in the school, to the teachers, and just in general, with how sometimes the kids are treated and how the students are treating the other staff members. Thank you.
It's actually a very good question. Again, growing up in the house with Shepherd, I was around every type of child you can think of with different issues, different home life issues. And the biggest thing that you have to take into account is you got to know their background. You have to learn and get to know them. When you talk about busing issues, for example, did you know that if your child acts up on the bus, most parents don't know that their child's acting up on the bus because it's not the school district's responsibility to take care of it, from what I'm being told, it's the bus companies. That's why you lose a lot of drivers, because the bus drivers can't talk to the parent and have that open line of communication. No different in the old days when I was growing up. If you were acting up, the next door neighbor would say something to you, and your parent would back it up. You'd be like, you know what, you need to listen to me. We don't have that structure right now. It's the bus driver versus the parent, parent versus the bus driver. In all actuality, it's no one's fault. They're not allowing the communication to happen to correct the action of the child. And it doesn't mean you have to kick them out of the school to correct the action. It's literally sit down with them and say, hey Joey, hey Sally, whatever the name is, this can't be happening. And if not, the bus driver's gonna get in contact with me. I go back to technology with the app of the busing, right? What if they could text the parent and say, hey, so-and-so was acting up a little bit today, and you have to talk with them? That doesn't happen. It goes back to public communication, parents, children, and adults, and the staff in the school district be able to talk to one another openly. It's not allowed. You talk about security guards and stuff like that. I was friends with most of the security guards that I grew up with, you know, going to the school district, going to Proctor. They're not allowed to have those open lines of communication with the parents. If you choke that off, what do you expect them to happen? And then a lot of these kids, you talk about probation, or any of those types of things. I have friends that are, you know, probation officers, and they tell me how a kid is getting bullied and then goes to school and retaliates to protect themselves, and then they're out of school for 3 months. You know what they get? A paper. And then the teacher's got to try to have that open line of communication from a distance with the student now, when in actuality we didn't take care of the bullying in the first place. Thank you.
I'm going to talk about busing first. With busing, let's loosen the bottlenecks. In the morning, too many kids going to school at one time. In the afternoon, too many kids leaving at the same time. Let's create before-school programs so that parents can drop their children off in the morning and don't have to worry about the bus. That alleviates the number of kids having to ride the bus. Let's do the same thing in the afternoon so that those parents can pick those kids up after school and alleviate the number of kids needing to go home after school. Then let's talk about security as well. We need to make sure that we have a better connection with our community. Unfortunately, we had some armed security guards hired in the district that have no connection with the community. They come from a corrections background. So with that corrections background, they're there to correct. They're not properly trained to interact with youth, unfortunately. That's something that we need to address. Not saying that we don't need them. We need them to understand that they have to interact with our youth differently. That will alleviate a lot of the problems, because a lot of times it's not the youth that's actually causing the problem. They're put in a position where they're either picked on, they're misunderstood, meaning the situation was misread, and unfortunately, they're reprimanded in a way that whoever misread, or whoever's looking at the situation, will deal with that situation. So better connections with the community helps with that. Fewer people on the bus in the morning and after school will alleviate a lot of the bottleneck, a lot of the frustration you guys are seeing at the time when these kids are fighting before school or after school, because there's so many people at one time. And it also alleviates or lessens the response time, because you have to deal with so many bodies at one single time.
Going to your question, being employed for the school district for 31 years, I've seen what you're saying, and I understand your frustration, because nowadays you can't touch a kid or you can't do this or that, and it puts you in a bad position. Even when I was on council, I worked with the police and public safety. Different circumstances bring different things. We got to get communication, working together, and you guys need the tools, we need the staffing, and you need, as far as administration, working with you guys to find out ways we can solve these problems. And I'd be willing to help you guys any ways I could.
I think one of the most important things that we haven't really looked at on the busing is that I think we need aides on the bus that work for the school system, so we can know these kids a little better than we have already. They can work with these kids every day, and they can see what kids are actually having problems, and then they can pass it back down to the school system. They can get with the psychology department to see if these kids need help. But I can tell you what, it's important to have a code of conduct. These kids need to understand what's right and wrong. They need to understand how to act in school. They need to understand on a bus. I know there's kids out there with psychological problems. I'm not talking about them. Those are the kids we gotta help. But there's a lot of kids out there in these buses, because I've talked to a lot of bus drivers, who are just downright unruly, and we need to take care of those problems right away. So yes, we need to take care of the kids that have issues, but we need to be strong in our code of conduct in the school and outside the school. Thank you.
So I like the question. Food safety is a big concern for me. We've watched a couple things change at JFK, which has been great. We've watched them, they've started to do a staggered release, which has been helpful. You're watching the principals come out, the assistant principal come out, that's great. Because I can tell you that 2 months ago, I was picking up a bunch of kids, and one of those, in that car ride, one of those kids that I bring home is a young lady. And as I'm watching them come out the door, I can see the young lady coming. And I watch all of these children run from a bus. All of a sudden, like a tsunami, coming across is a huge fight. It's happening. There's so many people in this fight. I couldn't see this young lady, nor could I see the other kids that I was picking up. I might be biased because I all have boys, and this was the young girl, so I'm partial to her. I couldn't see her. I can't explain that feeling to you. She's not even my child, I physically got out of the car. I don't know what I was going to do, but I got out of the car because there were so many kids and I couldn't see her. And the amount of children that were there, I couldn't even see security. I don't know where they were, and I can tell you as much as they weren't there. I watched them at 2 o'clock as a couple gentlemen walked out the door. The security wasn't there. Luckily, I saw my children. They had this young lady. They brought her to the car as they're peeling bodies off. I can go on to tell you other stories. I've said it before for other people that were meeting. My children are in football. I picked them up a couple Fridays ago. They're in my car screaming as they're watching a live video of their friend Donovan being jumped. There was 8 kids on him, and all these other kids are videoing. And my kids are in the car freaking out. There was no security. This kid crawled under a running bus and is under the running bus, and they're dragging him out by his feet. You can look up any of these videos because the kids right now are making money selling these videos.
We need to look into our contract and see how we can break that and find other avenues to fulfill those needs. I know there was a lady that came in September, October last year, said that they had a lot of people that had filled out applications, but they didn't allow the background check or push them through the training. So they're creating a problem, getting reaction, and they have a solution that they are failing to address. And to go back to the children, we need to bring their morale back and get their confidence back through their education. Just like the CTE program that's coming in there, maybe get some projects to them and get some camaraderie so they actually feel as one with the others, so they can work together instead of fight with one another. Because, like I said, with our education, they don't feel that they're equal with their peers because they're smarter or whatever have you, that they can't see eye to eye with them. And I think that's a huge problem that we need to be addressing.
The next question, we're going to lower your answer time down to 1 minute, just because we're very short on time in this building, so we don't get much time. So you'll have 1 minute to answer the questions, and we'll get through, don't worry. Next, go ahead.
Hello, as a product of the Utica City School District, I am a graduate from Proctor in 2016. I am a graduate of Delaware State University with a bachelor's in kinesiology, that is an HBCU. So just from my experience and from some of my peers that I've spoken to, I was a student athlete at Proctor, varsity soccer for all 4 years there. I feel like as a minority, we are celebrated in athletics and not as much in academics. I have had plenty of times where I was pulled out of class early, missed tests, missed assignments, and I would just either get an A, just because, or I would get the C because I didn't do the work. If it weren't for my parents, I wouldn't have had the drive to get my academics up, but I have seen teachers and others encourage some of my counterparts to get their work done and make sure that they learn the material rather than just giving them the grade to pass them. So I've heard your feelings about diversity, but I want to know, if elected, what is one thing that you will do in support of the teachers to make sure that students like myself have the support and are actually learning the material that they may miss when they are not in school?
Question. Very good question. Sorry, that's my daughter that asked the question. But listen, as a parent, and I've said it before, student success hinge upon parental involvement. If we're not involved in our daughter's education, she's not as successful as she was. She goes away to college and struggled as a freshman, but she graduated with honors when she graduated as a senior. We have to look at working with the Utica Teachers Association to help them bring in teachers that reflect the student body, that actually live in the community, so that Grow Your Own program would answer a lot of these questions. We'll help with that because it's hard for a parent to see a teacher in the grocery store and not have a conversation or a high when you have that child in that classroom. So that builds your community. That builds the buy-in of the teachers, that builds the buy-in of the parents. There needs to be a rapport between the teachers and the parents, open communication to make sure that their children are educated properly.
First of all, congrats for all your hard work and your graduating and your parents are, I'm sure, very proud of you. I think some of what he's saying, I agree with him. You got to have parental involvement and you got to have support at your schools with your teachers. And I think a lot of the issues with the teachers union contracts, staying later, who's going to stay later, who lives in Utica, who don't live in Utica. We got to get more incentives for teachers to stay a little longer to help students to get further in college and their education. And I support any way that academically can help the kids get more academics.
Can you explain your question again? I just want to make sure I'm answering it correctly.
Yeah, so basically the question is, myself, I know that I have missed assignments, right?
In college or high school?
In high school, in the district.
Okay.
And I know that I have been given grades that I did not deserve, right?
Because?
Because I've missed it for athletics or whatever reason.
So you just were given the grades?
Just
So
were
you
given
didn't-
the
you didn't
grades,
feel
but
you
I
deserved
know,
them?
I feel like I didn't deserve them.
Okay.
But what I'm saying is I was given the grade, but I didn't know the material, right? But I know some of my counterparts have been hounded to make sure they get work in. Teammates of mine is what I'm saying. Hounded to get the assignments, they made sure they knew the material. I didn't have to, right? So what is your plan, or what is something you will do in support of the teachers to help them wrap their arms around students like myself, a minority, to make sure that we do not fall through the cracks and we are learning the material versus being handed grades as a student athlete who may or may not deserve them? I want to know the material. I want to be treated the same way.
And I appreciate you wanting to learn and to do that. No, I think that they do this in colleges, you know, when your student athletes, they have special teachers for these kids after school to help them with it or before school. And I would think that if there is an issue with that within our school system, that we have to make a little extra time for our student athletes. I agree with you 100% on that. I think that's a good idea, and that's something that we should bring forward. And I should speak, we finally have an athletic director in the city. We finally just hired one, we're gonna hire one. It's on the budget this year. This is something that we should work with the athletic director, or he can work with the administration and work out a plan where we can do this for you. You know, I can't come up with an answer for you right now. That's something that the athletics director and the administration and the teachers need to come up with. You know, a man isn't on an island, teachers aren't on an island, our students aren't on an island. We all need to work together to figure these things out. And that's what good negotiation, people that can build consensus can do these things. So thank you for that question. And what was it? What degree do you have?
I have a bachelor's in kinesiology,
What is it?
movement science.
Okay, good.
You have a wonderful dad. Thank you. A wonderful father, and I'm proud to be up here with you. I will say that. And it's just like your father, I'm a mother with 3 boys, and I have to hound them, and they're involved in, they play baseball, they play football, they're involved in every sport there is, and I have to hound them to get their work done. I'm not gonna know every answer, but I think the best thing that you can have with someone is when they don't know the answer, what I can say is, what would you tell me? I need to learn. You need to help show me those things. These are these things that when you're bringing forward, if I don't have an answer, I don't know what's gonna work best for you. I don't know what's gonna work best for a child that doesn't have a parent at home. But how do we do that if we don't sit down and have a conversation with you? And I say, what would you do different? Show me. What can I help you do? And that's by learning. And that's just being honest and saying, I would have to come to you and I would have to learn. And I have to see your needs.
accountability that are pushing our children through, just like they did with my child. If you look at those grades to the right, they promoted her to the second grade. She wasn't ready. Look at the grades on her. There's a lot of twos, which is current grade level, approaching current grade level. She wasn't ready for the second grade, so she just pushed her through. And being a board member, one of the responsibilities is to make sure that their children's educational needs are met, and if they are failing, you need to address them. On top of that, they need to make sure their constitutional rights and their human rights are not being violated, in which they can also be held accountable for under educational law 306 and 310. 306 is a willful wrongdoing, and they knew that those children were receiving those grades. I had emailed them numerous of times of them falling into a disparity that they may not get out of, and 310 is the removal of said member that knows this willful wrongdoing. It's called accountability.
So I actually experienced that with my child. My son Aiden, when he was in 7th grade, he was playing baseball. Got a progress report over the weekend, again, to involve parents. What was I doing over the weekend? Trying to drill into them what happened. You know, not scolding them, not ripping them apart, but trying to understand where's the disconnection, because I didn't receive a phone call, I didn't understand what was going on. So that Monday morning, I went into the principal's office and I called for a meeting with all those teachers. But what I found out was the teachers weren't allowed to let the children go home with books. So my son wasn't able to do his homework correctly and get the education, reading the assignment and having the book there to follow up the assignment, 1. 2, teachers explained to me this is what needs to work on, so we formulated a plan. 3, I made sure that there was a connection between athletics and the teachers with my child. Now, that's very important, because the old school days where your kids is failing or borderline failing, they don't play, they sit. And that's the rule in our house. And I didn't come from that environment, I created that environment in my house. So, you gotta give your teachers resources, you gotta give them guidance counselors, you gotta give them social workers, and you gotta fill those gaps. We could talk all day about sorry.
You're okay. Yes, we have 1, 2, and then 3.
Okay, so our district is a melting pot. We talk a lot about how diverse it is, and I want all of you to just kind of think outside the box, and if you could reinvent the school board. This is a 2-part question, so I guess you have 30 seconds on each one to respond. The first part is, what do you think about mandating that the board have 1 African American, 1 Latino, 1 Asian, 1 Bosnian, 1 Russian, 1 white person, and 1 Arabic person? And if I left anyone out, any nationality, forgive me, but what if we had 1 of each on the board? And then my second part is, what are your thoughts about having 1 representative from each of the districts, and then maybe 2 or 3 at large to fill those board seats, because we have such a diverse community, so that it will be reflective of our children, families, and community.
No, I don't agree with you. I think you have a school board with the most qualified people. That's what I think you should have.
You don't.
I like the idea. The idea of having a board that is speaking to all different types of ethnicities and populations that understand and can bring a big different perspective. Imagine the possibilities if we had a board and everyone understood and we could come together and learn, because, right, that's how we do things best in the world, is from learning from each other. It would be great. Other, smaller committees under that can fill those seats. Great. We can find the people and get them to come out, because this is not a fun race. This is not easy. So if you find those people, bring them. I mean, imagine the possibilities we have. Look at our school. Our school's full of diversity. We've learned so much from our school. My kids know so many different things that they never would have known. They have a full foot forward when they're stepping into the world, because they already have a world-free education. They teach my husband, myself, and their cousins When they come to visit that don't know anything, we teach them stuff. So imagine what we could learn.
On mandates, we live in a free world, a constitutional republic, and this is why we are here now to find the most qualified person to fill that said position. I will vote for anyone who I feel that will do the job, that will work for we the people who are the children. That is who we are designed to follow and to make sure their educational needs are there for. And it doesn't matter where you come from. Like I said, I am from all parts of the country and world. So that's all I have to say.
So mandates, I don't think you need to mandate it, because if we go back to the idea of voting by wards where you live within our city, and we kind of follow that common council method, you shouldn't have to mandate something like that, because the community is going to want to get involved first and foremost. So I think if we go back to voting by the ward of where you live, and you'll kind of weed out a lot of the stuff that we have going on now in our board, where you see where it's the same people, the same family members, the same last names. Yeah, I don't have anyone related in the school district, working in the school district and not running, and people can't figure out why. It's very simple. I want to lead by example. To answer your first question, that's how I would handle that. The 2 or 3 seats at large, I think that creates more opportunity, and I think you spin off of that and you add more subcommittees to get the different cultures involved, to create fundraisers and different community events, not around the community, but at the school districts, at the schools. And that's how you kind of tie and you build that up from there. Thank you.
I don't agree with mandate.